contribute the concept to the concept of intertextuality. Just like structuralism, just a semiotic, they try to theorize, they try to explain the process, they try to offer the formula about what we have done in our daily life. Like in semiotics, every day we give meaning to sign, and then the theory of it is semiotic. It explains how do we get the meaning, and then it is also about intertextuality. Actually, we've done it every day. Yeah, when we read something and then we can relate it to the other idea. When we watch movie, we can relate the story to the other books or experience. It's also called as intertextuality. But what is actual intertextuality will be explained more after this, of course, in this class. Yeah. Okay, so the main thinker of intertextuality actually Julia Kristeva, and then Ferdinand de Saussure give his influence about the structure, the language system, and then Roland Barthes, how do we make meaning? Yeah, the relation of meaning, the association, the associative relation, and the paradigmatic relation. Of course, they work a lot in the way we relate something. Whenever we do some reading, and then Mikhail Bakhtin contribute to how texts are produced in the society, and some cultural context also infused in the text. Next, hari ini pakai headset, baru ingat kalau punya headset gara-gara tadi hujan deras banget nggak dengar apa-apa. My cat keep distracting. So look closely here. Lewis Carroll Alice Adventure in Wonderland, and then the Matrix film here. Both of them have similarity. Follow the clue, White Rabbit, and then undergo surreal adventure, yeah, like Alice, go to the other world, and then this Keanu Reeves, the handsome Keanu Reeves, goes to some, I don't know, computer world, robotic world, something. I forget about the story. Ya, filmnya udah lama banget. But the kind of adventure kind of surreal and then full of what is it? Teka-teki gitu ya. Harus ada misi yang diselesaikan. And then they also meet with strange thing in their adventure. So the phrase "falling down the rabbit hole," follow the white rabbit, yeah, becomes synonymous with the beginning of journey. That is strange, problematic, and chaotic. Just like if you hear one of Taylor Swift's song in Evermore album, her latest album, dia bilang down from the rabbit hole. Long story short, it was a wrong. It was a wrong guy. Jadi dia juga pakai frasa. Dia juga pakai down to the rabbit hole as a metaphor or idiomatic expression to say something strange, problematic, and chaotic was happening. That's why this phrase is used in film, literature, and arts. So it is that kind of intertextuality. Whenever you say something like down the rabbit hole, you don't have to interpret it as with its denotative meaning or with its literal meaning, but if you have found it's in another context, like in Alice in Wonderland, you will catch the idea, the connotation. It's about beginning journey that is strange and chaotic, gitu ya teman-teman. Dari pengenalan itu saya rasa memulai intertextuality tidak terlalu rumit ya, cuma nanti ada kategorinya lagi. So it is believed that there is a set of relation between text. It involves assumption regarding the reader, and then assumption regarding the reader. Will your reader be acknowledged enough to understand the phrase or the concept or the idiomatic expression? Yeah, that's why most of the time book publisher usually has their own target market. Yeah. Makanya membaca itu ada levelnya gitu. Teman-teman level bacanya sudah sampai mana? Ya, seperti saya pengalaman juga kemarin mau baca pertama kali dapat mata kuliah film studies, baca bukunya Christian Metz itu sakit kepala. But after I read a lot of semiotics books, and then read so many other texts before I read how semiotics is played in movie, then I actually find out how to enjoy Christian Metz books, because she made a lot of reference from outside her book, outside theory that should be grasped into your mind so that you can understand what she said and what he explained about what she is comparing on his book. Because harus banyak dulu stok teorinya ternyata sebelum baca dia. Okay. And then the situation being referred, and of course the context. Literary theory actually the theory of reading. When we are reading, we search for meaning. There is no one who read without searching for meaning. Itu namanya bukan membaca, tapi cuma lihat gambar ya, karena basically bentuk huruf ini kan gambar ya. A ini kan dicoret seperti gambar, baru kita beri dia nama A, baru kita sebut dia A, baru kita sebut dia alfabet pertama. Sebelumnya dia hanya goresan gambar. Ya, kalau kita nggak reading itu berarti kita cuma melihat bentuknya, tapi belum reading. When we read, even though we only read one word, one letter like this, A, we actually find its meaning. Oh, it is A can be the first alphabet. It can be what is it? Apa A sama the article, ya, article showing a singular noun means we already get the meaning. Okay, meaning lies inside the work of literature. Readers must extract it because it is said that when we see image, we can see all the denotation, but when we see literature, everything must come to the connotation. So we must interpret what connotation is made by saying this story, by telling this narrative, by telling certain setting or certain characterization. What connotation should we grasp to find out the message delivered by the author? So that's how we create interpretation when we read the work of literature. And to know what connotation is working on a text or in here literature text, we have to know in what culture they are built. Certain word will be negative in one culture, but it can be neutral in other culture. That's why everything is related. Yeah. The contemporary literary theories like cultural studies now believe that work of literature are built in system and codes and tradition of the previous literature. Traditions such as genre, yeah. And then how do they build romance? How is the structure of romance? How is the structure of adventure? How is the structure of what is it? Folk tales, for example, ya. Ada strukturnya sendiri. There is a system. They will not stand alone. So because text will not stand alone, it is not an island, ya. The text is not produced in vacuum. Ini andalannya. Kalau bikin tulisan apa, tidak ada teks yang dibuat di ruang hampa. Sudah sangat klise sekali. Ini pun juga klise untuk dituangkan di sini ya. Tapi kalau kalian sering dengar, berarti intertekstualitas kalian jalan. Okay. Even work of literature are built in system, codes and tradition and other field, film, music, and cultural in general. Novel can use knowledge of technology, medical, fashion. Kenapa sih bilang fake? Apa yang fake? Ya, jadi novel ya. A novel cannot tell story about a doctor or a situation in war without touching a little bit about technology, a little bit about medicine, because at least the author have some knowledge about military, if a novel about war, yeah, or the novel knows a bit about fashion when she creates, when is it, Shopaholic, siapa yang Shopaholic ini, ada yang pernah nonton filmnya, ya. Ini saya masih kurang satu buku yang Christmas punya. Saya punya dari 2, 4, 6, 7. Sudah 8 seri Shopaholic. Nah, in Shopaholic series, at least the author has the background in fashion industry or fashion brand, yeah, or the connotation. What connotation does the brand will bring to the character? And you also a reader. If you do not know anything about fashion, it could be very difficult to understand the character. Where the character is so eager to buy this, to buy that, and become a relatively compulsive disorder of buying things. So it needs an active reading, not only for interpretation, but to discover a network of textual relation. Yeah. Jadi a reading is actually a process of touring between texts. Whenever you see a brand in novel that you don't know, you open your Google, you try to read your Google and search Dolce and Gabbana itu apa? Oh, ternyata merek ini. Danny Uncovered itu merek apa? Things. So even though you are not doing it by using your phone, open Google, but you already have the knowledge inside your brain, it means that you get the knowledge somewhere from your reading in the past. You already done the process of touring between the text. Yeah. So text in sense of a verbal record. Ya, verbal record yang kita bicarakan itu adalah ketika sudah ditransferkan, transmisi, ya ditransfer ke dalam bentuk tulisan, maka menjadi di sini teks ya. Sebenarnya teks juga macam-macam, kejadian, tindakan itu semua bisa dijadikan sebuah teks dalam arti luasnya. Nah, context is everything around the text, and then intertextuality, it means the text relation with other text. Jadi membedakan teks, konteks, intertextuality. Teks itu verbal recordnya, apa yang tercetak. Kemudian konteks, everything around the text, dibuatnya di mana, authornya siapa, sejarahnya apa. Sorry, kalau sudah siang kena kipas angin kelamaan. Sorry kalau ada yang alergi dengar orang bersendawa. I'm so sorry because one of my friends in college, whenever she hears somebody burping, she will be very angry. Yeah, she can beat the people or throw something very hard to that person who is burping. It's very mean. Intertextuality, ya, text relation with other text. Jadi ini membedakannya. Jangan-jangan teksnya berbeda konteks ya dengan yang teks yang dicetak punya konteks sendiri berbeda, ada teks lain punya konteks yang berbeda tetapi mereka punya relasi. Nah, itu yang disebutkan namanya intertextuality, walaupun berbeda konteks tapi masih ada relasi saling membantu dalam interpretasi. Itu teman-teman. And then about the meaning, Graham Allen, one of the writer who discussed a lot on Julian-Kristeva theory, he argues that meaning becomes something which exists between the text and all the other texts to which it refers and relates, moving out from the independent text into a network of social relation. And literary theory, the analysis of work of literature, involves making intertextual references a key to be critical reader in interpreting the text. That's why, as a literary student, you have to read a lot of books, read a lot of work of literature. You can read the summary, you can read the whole novel, you can read the review, but please improve your amount of reading. Read the theory. I sent you semiotics book to dibaca, so that you have you have saving some knowledge, you have saving phrase, you have saving ideas, you have saving form of sentences. Ya, itu semua simpenan, tabungan ide, which later in your thesis writing you will know, oh, I have read this somewhere. I only need to quote the phrase and I can find it easily in the searching engine di Google. Aku pernah baca, tapi aku butuh Google untuk misalnya sekedar mencari nama bukunya gitu. But you have read it. That's why savings, ya, membacalah dari sekarang. Because intertextuality here matters very much when you are trying to write something. You don't write anything directly from your mind. Yeah, your mind will tell you nothing if you didn't read anything before. The origin of intertextuality, the major role is the influence from Ferdinand de Saussure, who emphasizing the systematic features of language, establishing relational nature of meaning and text, and then Mikhail Bakhtin from Russia emphasizes the relation between an author and his work, the work and its reader, and the relation of all of them to the social historical forces that surround them. Ini tadi yang saya bilang, ada social historical forces that actually motivate the author to work on certain discourse. Yeah, the discourse can be in the form of narrative. And then Julia Kristeva, combining the views of Saussure and Bakhtin, Julia Kristeva produced the first enunciation of intertextuality. Nah, enunciation ini artinya adalah semacam memberikan term baru, memberikan istilah baru ya, intertextuality. Sometimes when you type it, ya kadang-kadang kalau diketik di Word dia masih biru-biru belum kayak ada belum kayak belum terdaftar aja di beberapa komputer seperti itu. Harus jadi jadinya ada the form Julia Kristeva work is published during the transition period of structuralism to post-structuralism. So I think both of these episteme step back and relax, come back to the subjectivity, like the expressionism before structuralism, and then the interdeterminacy, because there is no fixity in one meaning. Yeah, kalau di structuralism, it's like everything is structurized, you cannot go outside the structure, but in post-structuralism, even though you cannot go outside the structure, but there is no fixity, kita diajak lebih santai lagi ya. Di sini structuralism ada stability, post-structuralism emphasize on uncertainty, and then structuralism offer methodological way to learn narrative, but in post-structuralism, it also involves desire, pleasure, and play whenever we are enjoying text, ya, apakah itu political text, literature text, medical text, gitu ya, ada desire, keinginan membaca itu, karena ingat sekali lagi, desire, pleasure ini juga satu hal yang considerable in cultural teori, ya. Mereka juga merupakan fakta, ya. Kalau tanpa desire, metodologi apapun juga tidak akan jadi, misalnya interpretingnya, gitu. And she is Julia Kristeva. In the mid-90s, she became influential in international discussion in critical analysis, and of course, feminism. Next, again, Ferdinand de Saussure and Mikhail Bakhtin. Ini tadi saya skip ya, udah. Intertextuality. With the term intertextuality, Kristeva proposed that the text is not an individual, isolated object, but a compilation of cultural textuality. She believes that the individual text and the cultural text are made from the same word. The word is in dictionary. That means you apply everything which is available, what is given to you. You can only repeat them, and you can only transform the shape of the sentence or the shape of the word. But actually, any choice that you make is already there in the given language. In the given language, merubah Kristeva argued that authors do not create their text from their own mind. The author rather compile them from the pre-existent text. Ini yang saya bilang tadi, kompilasi reflection for you that if your mind is so blank that you cannot write anything, when you have a paper assignment, it's meant that you are like reading other text. Intersect and neutralize one another. So we can say that there always are the word in a word and other text in a text. The concept of intertextuality requires therefore that we understand text not as self-contained system, jadi tidak puas di dalam dirinya sendiri ya. Text is understood as differential and historical, as traces and tracing of otherness, since they are shaped by the repetition and transformation of other textual structure. Jadi teks itu sebenarnya bisa kita lihat sebagai jejak ya, jejak trace of and tracing ya. Dari yang lainnya of otherness, dari keberadaan teks yang lainnya karena mereka dibuat oleh repetition dan transformation. Nah ini dia, repetition itu kadang-kadang bermasalah nanti berakhir pada misalnya kalau repetition aja berarti kita semua punya potensi plagiarism. Ya, kita semua punya potensi plagiarism. That's why it's not enough to only repeat the older idea or the older theory quotation, but you need to paraphrase. Paraphrase means to transform it, because the idea is you get to from somewhere else, but in the way you tell your own idea, you have to paraphrase the reading to a certain level so you can avoid plagiarism. The theory of intertextuality insists that a text cannot exist as self-sufficient whole, and so it does not function as a closed system. Author and reader connection. The communication between author and reader is always paired with an intertextual relation between words and their prior existence in past text. That is, the text is constructed as mosaic of quotation. And any text in the absorption and transformation of another. Jadi ada mozaik di situ ya, yang membuat bentuk baru. Kalian kalau cuma satu ide aja, tapi kalian nggak parafrase, itu sudah plagiarism. Tapi kalau beberapa ide kalian kumpulkan, lalu kalian parafrasekan, lalu kalian tarik kesimpulan baru seperti itu baru namanya research, because you put a mosaic of quotations. Ya, that is a text. Ya, bukan cuma sekedar copy, tapi create a text with a new interpretation. So the text is an intervention in a cultural system. Intertextuality should not be, but frequently is used to refer to intentional allusion, offered or covered. Ada yang offered sengaja, ada yang tidak. International allusion, if you remember, allusion itu kayak kalau misalnya saya sebut jangan kau kayak malin kundang, itu berarti ada intentional allusion. I hope that you understand the concept behind malin kundang. But the problem is when the address or my listener or you who listen malin kundang but you don't know anything about it, it means that my idea will not deliver. Okay, to understand the concept, therefore we need to look closely at what we mean for post-structuralism justified parts. A text for Kristeva along with Barthes is to understood as a linguistic phenomenon, which has its origin not in the intention of the author, but in the multiple discursive context of the immediate culture of that text and that author. As Barthes explained in his famous essay, The Death of the Author, a text is made of multiple writings entering into mutual relation of dialogue, parody, and contestation. Ada dialog, ada parodi, peniruan, ya, contestation, ada kontes di sana, ada kontestasi. Roland Barthes' view on text, intertextuality is belief in plurality and the freedom of all reader from all constraints. Literary meaning can never be fully grasped by the reader. Setiap orang punya genre pemahaman yang berbeda-beda. That's why literary meaning can never be fully grasped. Yang kita lakukan hanya pendekatan, approach, kemudian beberapa bukti, bisa jadi ini. Makanya satu judul novel itu bisa jadi beberapa skripsi ya, karena there is no fully grasped meaning yet into literary work. The death of the author. There is a liberation of the reader, yeah, a liberation of you as researcher to interpret it, yeah, with some theory, the theory which is never ever taught before by the author, but you have the liberation to scrutinize the text with different approaches. All literary production takes place in presence of other texts, and only through intertextuality are texts allowed come. Okay, so as literary device, intertextuality creates an interrelationship between text and generate related understanding in separate work. Jadi ketika kita memahami cerita tentang pengampunan, mungkin ada sebagian dari kita yang relate untuk cerita di Bible misalnya, atau cerita di dongengnya masa kecil. So it can be something that put intentionally by the writer, but it's not always that intentional. Kadang-kadang memang tema-tema yang universal itu bisa berulang di mana saja ya. Tapi ada juga yang benar-benar menyadur ide, menyadur plot, kemudian diganti strukturnya, diganti karakternya, diganti settingnya, diganti adventure-nya, gaya petualangannya. But in the meantime, it will arrive at same universal value. And then intertextuality is a literary discourse strategy utilized by writers in novels, poetry, theater, and even in non-written text, such as performance and digital media. Discourse strategy. Discourse strategy itu ya strategi wacana. Kayak kita, contohnya kalau di non-written text, kalau kalian nonton stand-up comedy, ya, kalau kalian tidak tahu discourse strategi, tidak tahu cara menghubungkan apa yang disebutkan si komik dengan kejadian di luar sana, dengan berita terkini, atau dengan stereotip tertentu, atau dengan kondisi atau kebiasaan kebudayaan tertentu gitu ya, atau kebiasaan masyarakat, you will miss the laugh, you will miss what the funny point of your standing comedy performance, because intertextuality to relate your joke to the other occurrences of happenings or events is actually literary discourse strategy. Types of intertextuality can be separated into three types. There are obligatory, optional, and then accidental. And the variation depend on the two key factors, the intention of the writer and then the significance of the reference. Significance-nya apa dalam memahami setiap teksnya. Ya. Nanti kalau dia semakin significance, maka dia obligatory. Intention, significant, obligatory. Kalau ada intensi tapi tidak signifikan bisa. Kalau tidak ada intensi sama sekali dan juga tidak terlalu signifikan, hanya sedikit misalnya nyantol dengan teks lain, it could be accidental. Obligatory intertextuality is when the writer deliberately invokes a comparison or association between two or more texts. Kayak baca buku ini untuk mengetahui lebih lanjut. Nah, itu berarti obligatory ya. Sudah langsung sejelas itu disuruh ya. Buka link ini ya, to see, open the next chapter to find more explanation about certain topics. It means obligatory intertextuality. And then without this pre-understanding or success to grab the link, the reader understanding of the text is regarded as inadequate. Kayak saya tadi baca bukunya Christian Metz. Kalau tidak saya tutup dulu itu, baru saya buka dulu pelajaran semiotik, saya tidak akan dianggap inadequate. Ya, boro-boro mau ngomongin semiotiknya film, ilmu semiotiknya aja masih meraba-raba. Jadi tutup dulu lah buku filmnya, baru nanti ya. Kalau tidak ya, there is no pre-understanding, it means that I will not be inadequate. I will be inadequate to be called as fully comprehend the theory of the book. To understand the specific context and characterization in Tom Stoppard, ini contohnya, one must first be familiar with Shakespeare Hamlet. Jadi tipe karakterisasi yang diserap menjadi literary device tadi ya, gayanya untuk memahami karakterisasi dalam judul lain. Rosenthal and Guildenstern. Okay. Next, optional intertextuality. It means it's possible to find connection to multiple of a single phrase or no connection at all. The intent of the writer when using optional intertextuality is to pay homage to the original writer or to reward those who have read the hypertext-nya. Kalian tahu hypertext, ya, menghubungkan link dengan teks lain. Ya, kalau hypertext itu adalah yang sebelum-sebelumnya. The use of optional intertextuality may be something as simple as parallel characters or plot lines. For example, in J.K. Rowling Harry Potter series shares many similarities with Tolkien Lord of the Rings trilogy. Ya, petualangan mereka sama. Ini adalah salah satu contoh yang juga sering muncul di mata kuliah folklore and mythology. The structure of this story, the structure of the narration can be built into the bone, and with the Joseph Campbell theory yang hero's journey, you will see that the bone that the foundation that develop their plot, ya, mulai dari beginning, kemudian go to the adventure, and then return to the homeland. Itu ternyata mereka core-nya sama, ya, kayak komputer tuh ada prosesornya. Mereka prosesornya sama. It's just different setting. Even the setting is quite similar, kayak ya, pasif begitu ya. And then accidental intertextuality is when readers often connect a text with another text, cultural practice, or personal experience without there being any tangible anchor point with the original text. The writer has no intention after reading a book or film, memory will be triggered in the viewer's mind. For example, when reading Herman Melville Moby Dick, the reader use the prior experience to make connection between the size of the whale and the size of the ship. Karena nggak mungkin intertextuality bahwa ada pengetahuan kita sebagai manusia, kita tahu kapal seberapa sih, paus itu seberapa sih, and then another reader could draw deep connection to biblical allegory. Jonah, cerita Nabi Yunus. Masa sih sama banget ceritanya? Settingnya sudah berbeda. Mungkin tendensi ceritanya juga bukan untuk mengutus seseorang, ya, seperti cerita Tuhan mengutus Nabi Yunus ini tadi. Oke. Next kita ini contoh-contoh ya. Jane Rice gathers some events that occurred in Charlotte Bronte Jane Eyre. Yeah, the purpose is to tell readers an alternative tale. Rice presents the wife of Miss Rochester, who played the role of secondary characters in Jane Eyre. While spinning the novel, Jane Eyre Rice gives her interpretation amid the narrative by addressing the issue such as the role of human colonization, racism, and Bronte did not point out in her novel otherwise. Jadi kayak dia minangnya tertentu untuk menceritakan background cerita yang mungkin tidak disampaikan oleh Bronte itu sendiri. Kemudian di sini ada Aimé Césaire punya cerita namanya A Tempest, almost similar with The Tempest by William Shakespeare. Ya, He transferred the occupation of Prospero, who was a magician, into a slave owner, and then he changed Ariel into mulatto, though he was a spirit, out in order to express the themes of power, slavery, and colonialism. And then di sini ada The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Narnia. Ya, kalau kalian tahunya Narnia filmnya, ya, fantasy novel. Kalau di sini aslinya The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Lewis very shortly weaves together in the religious and entertainment themes for a children book. Lewis using redemption. In doing so, he uses Edmund, a character that betrays his set line. General motive of this theme is to introduce other themes such as evil action, losing innocence, and redemption. Kalau cuma ceritanya itu kita diajarin pengetahuan moral value, apa yang bagus dan tidak itu hanya dari buku agama, mungkin kita bosan belajarnya. Tapi ternyata ada value-value yang sama juga bisa digubah, ya, digubah, diulang lagi, disajikan dalam bentuk novel. Teman-teman. Okay, intertextuality and non-literary. Intertextuality has been adapted by non-literary art for general sense in her essay, writer, readers, cultural context, history, and society all appear as text, as textual surveys. She does not limit the actual literary context only. Christopher's semi-analytical approach extends beyond the literary text, includes other art forms such as music, painting, and dance. Salah satu contohnya adalah kalau kalian lihat meme di 9gag, sekarang sumber meme itu nggak cuma di 9gag, bahkan mukanya David Kitchen ini juga bisa jadi meme. Kalau lihat di komen-komen, wah bahan meme baru nih. Kalau kalian bisa relating something to the meme, mungkin kalau untuk yang baru-baru aja mengenal meme itu agak susah karena kayak The Laughing Child, terus Poor Brian, terus yang gambar bebek, yang cuma gambar bebek doang itu kalau nggak tahu asal mula meme itu dari mana ceritanya mungkin agak susah relate-nya, ya. Atau di posting-postingan tertentu kadang ada lukisan klasik, ya, lukisan zaman dulu yang ekspresi mukanya nggak jelas gitu, tapi dikasih caption untuk zaman sekarang, perasaanku kalau lagi ini, perasaanku kalau lagi ini, pakai foto apa begitu kan, you relate something. Itu juga something beyond literary text, something that you see in our everyday life, ya. Oke, ini contoh lagi, sudah skip aja ini juga. Nah, kalau if you want to do intertextuality analysis in your novels, your favorite novels, or you might find something interesting on the newest titles, gitu ya. Pastikan ada novel yang baru, kemudian relate novel yang lebih lama. Tapi kalau novelnya lama sama lama, agak sulit gitu ya untuk mencari novelty-nya. Dicari names, phrase, concept, and event in plots, and then you can categorize the data into different groups based on the type of the intertextual reference they included. Divide the reference to explicit and implicit reference, or you can go to the categorization that I have given you, obligatory, optional, or accidental. Maybe di accidental itu juga bisa kayak membantu kalau kalian di reader respond, ya. Kita ngerespon itu biasanya pakai accidental intertextuality. Result. So what novel can be considered to be, tadi yang Shakespeare yang mana? Kok jadi result ini? Oh, yang ini tadi. Ya. Oke. Saatnya contoh yang lain. Atau final remarks dulu. Saya bacakan dulu ini, baru kita browsing-browsing contoh. Jadi konteks intertekstualitas selalu kita praktekkan dalam kehidupan sehari-hari sejak pertama kali kita memahami kata. Sebuah kata mula-mula dipelajari maknanya dalam konteksnya. Ya, ketika kata tersebut atau gambar tersebut atau foto, ya, atau ekspresi muncul dalam teks lain, kita bisa memahami dari makna yang sudah kita dapat atau kita kenal sebelumnya. Kata menjadi teks atau misalnya kejadian, tindakan menjadi teks, bisa menjadi ide juga dan dapat muncul dalam pembacaan teks di bentuk lainnya. Seorang pembaca dengan wawasan dan wacana luas akan lebih mudah memahami isi sebuah teks. Pemahaman ini disebut pre-text. Intertekstualitas dapat membantu kita mempelajari penggiringan wacana tertentu. Jadi bisa juga untuk discourse analysis ya. Sebuah kejadian adalah teks, menjadi pemberitaan dalam teks, menjadi topik sebuah novel, dikutip, dan inilah yang menjadi cara kerja wacana. Dalam pembacaan karya sastra, pembaca yang menerima makna teks dalam porsi berbeda-beda, seringkali terlepas dari makna yang terberi oleh penulisnya, yang oleh Barthes disebut the death of the author. Dengan melakukan analisa intertekstual dalam karya sastra, peneliti atau kalian mahasiswa mencari unsur dalam teks yang terkait dengan teks lainnya, sehingga keterkaitan inilah yang akhirnya memanggil makna dalam benak pembaca. Ya. Makna itu dipanggil dari pengalaman, dari bacaannya. Kalau kita tidak membaca, kita tidak memanggil makna apa-apa. Kemudian, namun bukan berarti interpretasi tidak berujung ya. Interpretasi kayak semiosis itu, kalau kemarin ada yang namanya The Limit of Interpretation ya. Ini bukunya ternyata tulis di sini. Ada jejak-jejak, ada trajektori. Ketika kita menginterpretasikan, tentunya tidak terlepas dari trayeknya. Jadi kayak kalian bikin approach ke novel dan segala macam ya, kalian nggak bisa keluar dari apa yang dijelaskan dalam karakternya. Itu kan trayeknya ya. Interpretasinya boleh dari different approach, tapi tetap jejaknya ada di dalam karya sastra itu sendiri dengan elemen-elemen sastranya. Jenis-jenis intertekstualitas dalam teks telah ditelaah, disusun, diinterpretasi, fungsi dan vitalitasnya untuk melihat cara penulis menyampaikan maksudnya dan bagaimana pembaca akhirnya melahirkan makna baru. Oke, kita mau lihat contoh ya. Contoh yang semoga menarik buat kalian. Literatur. Mudah saya nggak salah pilih artikel. Oke, ya artikel suka bahasa ini. Mending contohnya pas. Stay updated with me later. Oke, literary references in Taylor Swift song again. Ya, kalau yang kemarin ada ngikutin story saya, dia baru menang Grammy untuk kategori Album of the Year ketiga kali. Oke, music icons known from her writing her own song. Ya, dia ada intertekstuality dengan Jane Eyre. Ya. In her song Invisible String seems to reference the line, I have a strange feeling with regard to you, as if I had a string somewhere. Ya, ini dia kan lagunya Invisible String. Jadi Invisible String itu pernah dibahas atau pernah ditulis di novelnya Jane Eyre. A string somewhere under my left ribs, tightly knot to a similar string to you. Ya, Invisible String. Romeo and Juliet, of course, the famous TikTok story, TikTok song, love story ya. You were Romeo, you were throwing pebbles, and my daddy said stay away from Juliet. Yeah. Oke, kalau nggak pernah nonton Shakespeare, mungkin siapa lagi Romeo ini? Scarlet Letter sama di love story juga ada. Pas you were Romeo and I was Scarlet Letter. Ini novel. Kemudian referensi untuk ini poet William Wordsworth di bukunya The Lake ya, ada kan, all the poets go to die and slips the poet's name into the line, tell me what are my words worth gitu. Dia menyebut nama si pujangga ini tadi. Take me to the lakes where all the poets went to die. Dia bilang gitu. The Great Gatsby, ya pasti udah sering dengar ya judul The Great Gatsby. Itu ada di dia quote Daisy from The Great Gatsby when he say, I hope she's beautiful fool in her song Happiness. Also she says, all you want from me now is the green light of forgiveness. Nah, jadi kata-kata ini adalah kata-kata yang dipakai karakter Daisy. I hope she'll be a beautiful fool who takes my spot next to you gitu kalau di liriknya. Di sini ada Charles Dickens. Dia pakai refresh his iconic line. It was the best time. It was the best time. It was the worst time by starting her song Getaway Car. The best of time, the worst of crime. Itu dia memparafrasekan famous line-nya Charles Dickens. Seru kan kalau kita bisa ngeliat contoh kayak gini ya, hal-hal mungkin di lagu-lagu favorit kalian juga ya. Tuh, ini tadi novel Rebecca. Rebecca sendiri sudah jadi Rebecca versi Gothic punya John Steinbeck dalam film. Rebecca versi Netflix juga ada, dan ini juga jadi referensinya Taylor Swift waktu nulis Tolerate. Ya, ceritanya Rebecca ini kan kayak istri baru yang masih muda, belum berpengalaman. Jadi apapun yang dilakukan dia kayak cuma sama suaminya cuma silahkan ya, cuma ditoleransi. Padahal dia sudah ekstra gitu. Please. Lalu di sini ada Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken, puisi Robert Frost yang terkenal. Kemudian di Illicit Affairs jadi Take the Road Less Traveled By. Ya paraphrase ya. Tapi kalau kita dengar ini, anak sastra dengar ini tuh kayak, ya ampun, kok ada sih yang bisa parafrasekan terus menjadi makna baru di Illicit Affairs ini kan ceritanya tentang, ya namanya juga tentang affair, jadi dia pasti mengambil jalan yang sulit gitu ya. Tapi ngambil jalan yang sulit ini memakai ide dari atau konsep atau alegori yang ada di puisinya Robert Frost. E.E. Cummings. The famous author is known as avoid capitalization, and she paid out to him by doing the same in her album. Intertekstualitasnya tidak dari tulisannya, tapi dari tindakannya. Ya, avoid capitalization. Jadi dia tidak melakukan capitalization di albumnya. Album yang mana tidak dikapital ini? Dia sering. Ya ada beberapa memang. Kayak gitu ya, teman-teman. Salah satu contoh intertekstualitas. Kadang kalau kita ngelihat ini kan literary reference, ada juga yang bentuknya semacam biblical reference atau historical reference. Kemudian kalau dulu ada Obama Care ada nggak ya gambarnya? Nah ini kan penggiringan wacana. Kenapa kuda Trojan ditulisan Obamacare? Kalau kita nggak ngerti sejarah Trojan horse itu apa ya kan? Ya, berarti hanya it will not be meaningful. It needs reader's understanding. So apa ya? To grasp the meaning tentang Trojan horse ini, membawa masalah apa di dalamnya? Itu dia. Ya. Kemudian Simpson. The Simpson. Nah, kayak gini. Ini kan dari kartun ya, tapi kita bisa relate ini dari The Famous The Beatles album cover. Ya, ini yang almarhum, ya semua udah almarhum. Yang almarhum nggak semua sih kayaknya Paul McCartney. Bahkan yang tidak pakai sepatu, yang kemudian setelah itu meninggal duluan ditiru juga ya. Jadi bukan sekedar niru ya, tapi mereka kayak memindahkan konteksnya ya, to make fun of it. This one, intertextuality in art. Banyak sebenarnya contohnya, kalau kalian tinggal browsing cari gambarnya gitu ya. Ada Mona Lisa, Simpson version, The Scream, Parody of the Real Painting. Gitu. Jadi parodi tadi juga termasuk salah satu jenis intertextuality. Like Lady Gaga, film Psycho, ya, kayak gitu. Contoh yang sederhananya. Ini lukisannya Salvador Dali, The Persistence of Time. Terus jadi kayak gini di Simpson. Albumnya Nirvana juga. Okay, that's it about intertextuality. At least you can get the idea. The example may be kind of simple, kind of easy, but maybe to understand the background of the theory is kind of complicated, and also how to apply the theory to literary text maybe more complicated than looking at picture intertextuality like this or literary references in Taylor Swift song, but you grasp the idea. You are now realize that you are now doing intertextuality in daily life. So pesannya adalah jangan mudah membilang, kamu copy paste. Jangan mudah bilang seperti itu ya. Intertekstual itu tuh bisa accidental ya. Kita bisa punya kemiripan ide itu bisa ya, tapi jangan cepat ngejudge orang itu meniru dan segala macam. Itu aja sih pesannya sekarang. Because now you realize that you understand something. It's not only about your capability to process anything in logic, but your logic your logic needs to be supported by reading, by knowledge, by data or experience, and that can support how you process interpretation of meaning in your daily life. Tinggal 2 menit, silahkan apa? Silahkan. Ya begitu teman-teman. Dah, saya cuma bisa dada-dada aja. Nggak ada kata-kata bijak lainnya, sudah habis sudah. Silahkan melanjutkan. Hari ini saya akan mengirimkan beberapa bukunya, juga video lain seperti biasanya. Ditunggu aja. Sampai jumpa. Selamat melanjutkan hari yang masih cukup panjang. Bye everyone.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you, Miss.